Hi there VC, Steve Whitty here. It's time for another video. It's the 1st of June, so what's better than showing what I've been up to in May. Got a fair few to show. I'll try and whittle the way through them as quick as I can. Some nice finds, and I did manage to enjoy myself also in the month of May. So without further ado, let's quickly go through what in the £2 finds. Fleetwood Mac, Mr. Wonderful, the second album. Records, not it's in okay shape, but obviously I picked it up more because I'd never had a copy of this album, so this will sit in the collection until I find a better copy, which probably will cost me an arm and a leg. Also in the £2 bins, this is Jimi Hendrix. This is the soundtrack recordings from the film Jimi Hendrix. In the mid-70s, there was a sort of documentary film released, and it basically features performances and interviews. And in fact, you get some of the interviews on the record itself. It's a double album. So you've got Hey Joe, Purple Haze, Johnny Be Good. You've got the Star Spangled Banner on there, Machine Gun Parts 1 and 2. Wild Thing from Monterey. So yeah, it's more, I think it's more to be a completist more than anything. Also in the £2 bins, I found a copy of Town and Country by Humble Pie. This is a Canadian pressing, and the cover is from that. Excuse the glare. It's on their intermediate UK series. I think it was the second album. I haven't got that much Humble Pie. I think I've got Live at the Fillmore and the self-titled album. Always pleased. Doesn't matter where to find some Otis Redding, and this again was in the £2 bins, and this is the Soul album. Came out in 65, I think. No, 66. It came after the Blue album. Mark Bolan and T-Rex, and I'm going to have to turn around to read this. This is Zinc Alloy and the Hidden Riders of Tomorrow. It came out in 74, and this, I think it's the last album that features Steve Curry on bass, and he's pretty much the career had started to decline from 73 onwards. New idols came around, things like Mud, things like that, and he took his eye off the ball and a lot, and the drug use was getting a bit too much. An album which, when I saw it, I thought, I've must got it. I'm sure I've got it. So I checked on Discogs and found it wasn't on there. Is Rufus featuring Shakin Khan, Rufus Size. Of course, when I got it home, I found I got it in the collection, just hadn't logged it. However, this is a better copy, so I've donated you a copy to my local Oxfam. A great album, Rufus, but funky, obviously the star is Chaka Khan, and you can obviously, with mere fact that her name's on the cover, and she's prominently out front as well on the cover. On the top of that, I like an album without a cover, and if I pick one up, I don't mind if it hasn't got the cover. As long as the record plays, great. And I find a copy of Rufus' self-titled debut album, and that's really good as well. Upgrade wise, I've got Bob Marley in the Way of the Survival. This came out in 79. My previous copy was from a cheap bins, and sometimes a lot reggae albums, you find those bins well played. So this is a much better copy. This album itself, Marley got a bit of criticism for when he brought out Kaya, being in fact it was too poppy, where his militancy gone. So this was his reply. He's very much about Africa. You can see all the flags of Africa. You see up the top where the survival is, the sort of drawings of the slaves on the ship. Best known track, So Much Trouble. It's a good album. It didn't do as well. Maybe because it didn't have the hits on there that were on previous albums, and then when he did Uprising, the hits were back. This is an album I'm pleased to find. This is Teenage Fan Club Bandwagon-esque. I think it's their third album, but it was the album that was sort of like a breakthrough for power pop. The big influence on him is Big Star, and he's quite clear on here. Came out in 1991 originally on Creation. This is a Sony Music reissue from 2018. Yeah, just a classic album. I've got a couple of Teenage Fan Club. I want to get Grand Prix on vinyl. There are certain albums I've had on CD now I want to get hold of on vinyl. Grand Prix by Teenage Fan Club, which I think is their best, is one of those. Album you don't see that often. It's Richard Thompson's Henry the Human Fly, his debut solo album. He just left Fairport Convention, a band who I just recently found out was toying, before it became Fairport Convention, toyed with the name Electric Dysentery. There we go. It's very much more like of the same. Of Fairport Convention. I was going to get him calling Fleetwood Mac, but it ain't Fleetwood Mac, it's Fairport Convention. So you've got here Rollover Vaughan Williams, and Just Took My Racehorse Away, Cold Feet, Mary and Joseph. So you've got Linda Peters, who would eventually become Linda Thompson on vocals. Sandy Denny's contributes vocals on here. Who else is on here? Ashley Hutchins provides vocals on here as well. So when a member of Fairport Convention left, he wasn't normally on bad terms. They just wanted to move on, so they always sort of helped each other out on solo albums. One of my favourite artists, I've mentioned this before, is Ian Hunt. So this is an album I've never seen before. All the good ones are taken. This came out in 83, and he returned back to CBS. He was on CBS. He left, go on Chrysalis, and this album came back, was issued on CBS. This would be his last album for about 6 years. He didn't do enough. He did very little in the 80s. He did some production work, but didn't do much recording. Title track. It's typical Hunt affair. He's just one of our great songwriters. The man's not got a knighthood, I don't know, or even an OBE or MBE. Yeah, really, it's disgrace. Yeah, it's well worth seeking out. Any Ian Hunter's worth seeking out. An album that I've been, whenever I've seen it in the shop, it's usually snapped up straight away. I can see why. It's Bob Dylan's Time Out of Mind, and double album. I think this is 2017 reissue. Came out originally in 1997. Some could say it might be his last great album. I'm not sure about that, but it's Dylan. It's a good album. It's a really good album. I think in the 90s he found his mojo. Like a lot of artists in the 80s, was not good for the artists that have been in the 60s and 70s. But yeah, it was coming back into form, and this really is a stonking album. A guy that you can never catch up. You'll never get a full discography. He's Neil Young. This was when I got it sealed. This is a Live Rust. This came out in 79. This is part of the Archive series. I think this is disc 12. I think. Neil Young's been very clever with his marketing of his old stuff. It's a double live album. You have side one, which is more the acoustic side, where Sugar Mountain, I'm a Child, Come to Time, After the Gold Rush, and then my Hey Hey Out the Blue. And then it gets more into the rockier things. So you obviously get all things like Needle and Damage Done, against more acoustic. Curtis the Killer, Cinnamon Girl, Like a Hurricane, Hey Hey My Into the Black. And that's my introduction into Neil Young, was when Rust Never Sleeps came out. That's when I was starting to get into music, and the local radio, BRMB, playing Hey Hey My Into the Black to death, especially Robin Valk. And then another reissue, this is Freedom, and this was his return to form at the end of the 80s, early 90s. Again, like Dylan, suffered in the 80s, but yeah, this is just a stonking album. Rocking in the Free World, obviously, is the standout track. Again, you get an acoustic version at the start, and you get the more rocky version at the end. and it represented the time that the world was changing. Communism was, all the communist nations were changing. And I think I do remember when Romania, after Ceausescu, a group of English bands for a TV programme did a tour of Romania. And no Western band had really been. And they closed their show with Rocking in the Free World. Hanoi Rocks. This is a band. You don't see that many albums. This is their second album, Oriental Beats. Sorry, came out 81. This is a good album, but suffers from poor production. They come over. If you know, Hanoi Rocks are Finnish. They were brought over to the UK to record the album, but the production just lets it down. But there's some great songs on here, and I suppose if you want to do a remix of it or what, you could do it. This is not the original cover. Now, forgive me, but that was meant to be the original cover. That is Andy McCoy's girlfriend at the time, who's got painted on. Record company bought that. So that's what became the cover. It still features the original lineup, so it's still got the original drummer, whose name's has sadly slipped me by. At the start of the month, I went to Birmingham City. I don't go that often, but it was a bank holiday Monday, and I thought, you know what, nothing better to do. And I popped into HMV Depot. It's big HMD in Dale End. What they're trying to do with it is make it so you've got big space. It's a big space. CDs, books, everything in. So decks and the like. And I've got a stage. This is the one they use if they do live signings or people coming to plug their record. So they have normally I think certain albums come out, one for $29.99, two for $50, three for $66. And so I went in and got the three for $66, and plus another album. So in the three for $66, love this album. David Gilmour, Looking Strange, #1 album, probably the best album. Might want to be one of the best albums of last year. It's in Orange Crush vinyl. There is a blue vinyl version as well. It's an album for man, who, in his mature years. This might be the last release he ever makes. But he features his daughter on there on some of the tracks as well. It's a beautiful album, beautiful sounding album. I've streamed it a few times. Also, Talk's Laughing Stock. This came out in 1991. This is a 2015 reissue. What can I say about Talk? This is, if it suffers from anything, it suffers again. Pete said this in the shop, about it when he had it previously. You can't get it's not something about the pressing that it could hold it back a little bit, production. But the songs are so sparse, they're so beautiful. Mark Hollis was just I think a genius. I think he didn't want to play the pop game. I think he did a solo album, which I've got a CD copy of, and that was it. Next we heard of him, in fact, he passed away. But I'd imagine he'd have been influenced by the third album I got for the 3 for 66, which is Scott Walker, Scott Free. It's an album I've very rarely seen in the wild. So when it was on offer, I thought I'm just going to take a punt on it. It got reached #3 in the UK charts in the late 60s. Scott Walker really was at his pomp sales-wise. Did Scott 2 I was playing earlier on in the week, which was #1. A lot of work with Wally Stott, the arrangements. But you've got here a mixture of self-written and Jack Brel songs, particularly the closing song on the album, If You Go Away, which Dusty Springfield's done a version, Nina Simone's done a version. I don't think anyone's done a bad version of that song. At this point, he also had a TV series on the BBC, and the BBC, in its infinite wisdom, wiped pretty much all the recordings. There's very little of that. That'd be fascinating. There is an album of of the songs, but all the film got wiped. In those days, videotape was expensive, and they tended to recycle, which we're all encouraged to do now. While I was also in HMV, I managed to get hold of Sparks. This is the album that came out a couple of years ago. The Girl Is Crying in a Latte. Oh, I love Sparks. I haven't yet heard the new album. We'll find out why in a bit, but just wonderful. It's just absolutely, they're just one-off. They're unique treasures. So I look forward to getting the new one, but this is absolutely storming album. Catching up on a few other things. Found a copy of this, Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance. Came out in 1982. This, I think, was their breakthrough in America. It sort of fell off a bit in the UK. British Steel came out, and Point of Entry followed. And Point of Entry didn't do that well in the UK, in comparison. Then they didn't have the hit singles. They were having hit singles at that point. Screaming for Vengeance. Got Electric Eye on it, Hellion. Screaming for Vengeance. You Got Another Thing Coming was a single. These became staples of the Priest live show. So, well, happy to have it, because they don't come around that often. People tend to keep hold of Judas Priest albums. Album that I've never seen before, and I got this quite cheaply. This is Killing Joke Revelations. Came out in 1982. Best known song was Empire Song, which produced one of the most strangest Top of the Pop appearances ever. At this point, in 82, Empire Songs was just underneath the top 40, so they were invited to go on Top of the Pops. And I think it's Jaz Coleman, the keyboard player. I don't know how there was a cult going around predicting the end of the world was nigh around 82, and he swallowed that, and he went off to Iceland. So and of course he weren't there for the Top of the Pops appearance, so they got a dummy dressed up in like a fire uniform, miming, sort of sitting at the keyboard, pretending he's Jaz Coleman. The drummer was miming the song. Totally surreal. And then the guitarist, Jordan, he buggered off as well. Of course, obviously, as I'm speaking to you now, the apocalypse didn't happen. So sort of come back a bit sheepish. Phil Manzanera 801, and this is Listen Now. Yep. 77 on the Polydor label. This is an all-star album. Plenty of people on it. Kevin Godley and Lol Cream provide vocals on a couple of tracks. Eno's on it. Mel Collins, Simon Phillips, Dave Mattox also on drums. Eddie Jobson on keyboards. Obviously the Roxy Connection. It's just a good rock whittle out album. I quite like it. I've got Diamond Head, and that was really good as well. I've mentioned that genre of music I'm trying slightly to get into is jazz. And I try my best. I'm streaming a lot more of it, so I think when I'm working from home, I'm getting a bit more of a appreciation for it. So, Miles Davis in Silent Way. I got this in the £2 bins, partly because the cover's a bit knackered, but the record itself is pristine. It's an original pressing. And I'll say the fact it's pristine because it used to belong to a public library. This was a record that was library records. If anyone's ever brought second-hand records that used to belong in a library, know that they can be pretty beat up. But this is just absolutely wonderful sounding record. So yeah, more appreciation. Yesterday I was in the shop and Peter brought in a big collection, and this guy looked after his records, and there was a lot of jazz in there. And in the new in bins was this Lee Morgan, the Sidewinder. Now, even my limited knowledge, I am aware this is one of the go-to jazz albums, and Pete sort of said yes, and so I said I'll pick it up then. So I've got it. This is a 2020 reissue. It's not the Tone Poet. This one came out in 2020, but it sounds great. And I recognised it, and that was the thing. Like, I recognised the actual opening track as something I'd heard before. I like my jazz not to be too ferocious. That's I think the word I'm trying to think. Too many notes. Yeah, I could do that on my iPad. But yeah, wonderful. I'm pleased to have that. Now, finally, last week I got off to Beardy Theory, the Beardy Theory Festival, which is it happens the sort of bank holiday weekend every year. I've been for the last 4 years. This year's was the best lineup I'd seen. I got to see Iggy headlining, Paul Eaton, Manic Street Preachers were there. I saw Shona and Knife, who were wonderful, and they did their Osaka Ramones set as well. That was just absolutely blew me out, blew me away. TerraVision, Ned's Atomic Dustbin, a lot of new bands as well. This is the whole why I like to go. So get an opportunity to discover new bands. And what I like about Beardy Theory, I like to give local bands, local to our area, an opportunity to play at a festival. And the biggest big takeaway I got from the festival was the amount of musicians that were smiling. It wasn't a chore, they just loved it. Iggy was in his element. Yeah, he's nearly 80. Yes, at the end of the gig, he was limping off the stage. The man, as I said, the man's nearly 80, but enjoyed it so much. However, one of the backs I got to see, Steve Carlson might be impressed I saw this, was Witch, the Zamrock band. They've got a new album coming out in the month at the end of June. It's in the month now, and they were I think it's just the two of the original members now, and a lot of guys. I think they're more based in the UK, and it was just wonderful. And I went to the merch tent, and then the merch tent was also combined with Rough Trade Records. They'd set up a store there, which was fatal. Well, fatal for a lot of people. It's fatal for me because just after the gig, they had 4 Witch albums. There's no way I could go away with 4. But they got the reissues of Introduction, which is their debut album. This is on red vinyl. These are US reissues. It says, blood red. And I got it home. It's wonderful. So I picked up that. Absolutely wonderful album. I also picked up that In the Past, which was the second album, which is on a Malachite green. Well, it's green. Wonderful. Just wonderful. I love this sort of stuff. I can see why Steve Carlson's really up on it. And then I thought, well, I'll go get away with that. And then I flicked through, that was fatal. And they also had a copy in there of Nuggets Volume 2, which came out last year. It's on Splatter. I won't take it out. It says psychedelic Splatter, but it's a lot of blues and greens. It's tagged as the follow-up that never was. There has been box sets of Nuggets. I think the CD, there was a full box set. But this is just wonderful. A bit more commercial than probably the first one. So you've got Loving Spoonful, Do You Believe in Magic? But then it follows it with 7 and 7 Years by Love. You got 96 Tears by and Mysterians. The 5 Americans are on there, but sort of stuff that I would never get to hear. The Witch by the Sonics is on there as well. You Must Be a Witch by the Lollipop Shop. Laugh by Burrumels. Stop Get a Ticket, Clefts of Lavender Hill. Very English sounding names. I think you know what they're trying to cash in on, but this is just wonderful. So there we go, VC. That is what ended up in my collection during May. Now, you probably might have seen my calls. I only called about 5, so this culling record lock is not going very well. So there you go. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. It's glorious out there at the moment. Sun is shining. I've got my shorts on, so that'll scare the wildlife away around here. So if you like what you see, thumbs up, thumbs down. Always love the interaction. Feel free to leave a comment. If you wish to subscribe, just click on the subscribe button. The more, the merrier. So whatever you get up to, VC, make sure you have a good one. Look after yourselves. Keep spinning. More importantly, keep on smiling.